We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. Yeah.
Dan, let me begin with you. What do you make of the latest comment by Trump? He basically says the war was going to renew today. He was about to strike Iran in a devastating way, renewing the war. What do you make of it? Do you believe it? And when he says it's because the Gulf allies have all been urging him to do so, and he's giving a peace deal another chance.
Steve, this is a tough one. I give Trump credit for sticking at it, despite the huge unpopularity of the war in the U.S. It's conceivable he is prepared to resume the bombing campaign. It's also possible it's all disinformation. He has stuck with a blockade. It's unpopular globally. He hasn't succeeded in getting the Europeans on side. The whole thing is messy indeed. However, when Trump speaks in public, I think it takes a special kind of naivete to take him at his word. Do I believe he was really going to, restart the war? Possibly, possibly not. Do I believe the Gulfies begged him not to? Not really. I think the UAE is determined to see this through. Saudi Arabia seems to be a bit more wobbly. It's conceivable that he didn't observe support across enough of these countries, and in particular Qatar perhaps, which houses major U.S. bases, and therefore, indeed, there's some measure of truth to it. But I zoom back a little bit. Clearly, it's possible that the war will resume. However, I just spent a week in London talking to strategists of every kind about this issue, and there's not a lot of faith that military action against Iran, short of ground invasion, is going to do the trick. What people do have faith in is the notion that eventually enough economic pressure on the regime would cause it to break. I mean, the regime may not give up, but the place will explode in anger. They're running out of water, running out of electricity, running out of food, running out of pharmaceuticals. Iran is betting that the Western world and the world at large has no tolerance for even a small amount of pain for 3 or 4 months, whereas their own people can be crushed to the ground and into dust for however long it takes.
Well, Malka, let me ask you this. Are you disappointed that the war didn't renew, that Iran is not being made to, or being forced toward a position that Israel can live with? Because as of now, it doesn't seem that Iran has moved at all towards agreeing, certainly not to hand over the nuclear dust and materials, certainly not to stop their missile production, and not to do anything about the proxies. So were you hoping that another round was going to begin?
I think that we're in a situation of like a marathon as opposed to a sprint. I think that we can all appreciate, after our experience with Iran, that they were very prepared for a war with Israel, that they were smart about it.
And the U.S.
And the U.S., 100%. And my understanding is that the regime is gloating right now and thinks that it has basically thwarted all the efforts of the United States and those of Israel, these two, one a global superpower and one a regional superpower. And so they don't feel, I'm not sure they're feeling this pressure, and I'm not sure economics is the thing that'll do it. But I do know that Israel is going to have to continue to focus on Iran.
Well, Dan, do you see a possibility, I mean, as remote, I think, as one would have thought before the war, that the U.S. will end up signing a deal with Iran that's really not much different or not much better than the deal that Obama signed back in the day?
Yeah, I do see that possibility. Doesn't mean I support the possibility. It's pretty clear, even if one is inclined to somehow believe what Trump says, if you listen to what he says, his entire focus is on the nuclear issue. That's it. Doesn't mention the militias, doesn't mention the missiles, certainly doesn't mention anything resembling democratic reforms in Iran, or even a vague promise never to massacre tens of thousands of protesters again. He's just talking about the nuclear. And on the nuclear, what was attainable was always the Obama deal. And I know the objections to it. But basically, the Obama deal was an end to military level nuclear enrichment in exchange for some sanctions relief, and essentially a selling out to the people of Iran. And some version of more of ignoring the missiles and the militias. And so the result was that Hezbollah got stronger, the Houthis got stronger, and have been trashing Yemen for a decade. And of course, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the popular mobilization forces in Iraq. It was a real mess because the deal didn't address that, but it did address the nuclear. So when Netanyahu convinced Trump that the deal meant that in 10 years' time Iran could rush to a bomb, that was a lie. When they argued that the verification wasn't sufficient, of course it's never sufficient, but basically both the Mossad and the IAEA agreed that they were sticking to the deal. But it meant they could do what they wanted on missiles, militias, and oppression. And they got some sanctions relief, which gave the regime some life. Malk, I agree with you that economic pressure alone will not convince these jihadist maniacs. That's clear. But when your entire country is starving, there is a limit. I have seen in my career as a global journalist many horrible despotic regimes that seemed permanent. And to paraphrase what was once said about bankruptcy, the change when it happens at first slowly, and then all of a sudden.
Has Israel become a banana republic, doing whatever is at the will of the United States? Gaza, Lebanon, Iran, and maybe in the future, Judea and Samaria.
I would disagree with the label, but can't really argue with the reality, except I don't think it's changeable. Israel's a country of 10 million people. Israel's a country whose policy in Judea and Samaria.
With one ally, one major ally.
Yeah. Well, and Europeans, who Israelis love to be skeptical of as their major trading partner in a situation where Israel's prosperity that enables it to maybe build more munitions is totally dependent on an export-oriented economy. It's surrounded by hundreds of millions of Arabs and Muslims. Whose
respect we have increasingly gained over the course of the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, they don't want to be at war with them constantly. And
they don't want to be at war with us anymore either. That's the good news. We have shown them what a horrible idea it is.
I can tell you I live in the Arab world, and it's a bit more complicated than that. But the reality is that Israel, with 10 million people, that has upset pretty much the entire planet almost with its policies in the West Bank in particular, Judea and Samaria, needs allies. Israel cannot pursue war with far larger countries, surrounded on all sides, without the assistance of the U.S. So you could say that this means it's a banana republic. You can also say that Israel has always succeeded.
I was being provocative.
Of course I understand. by creating support around the world. And to mock and deride that as somehow unnecessary and a sign of weakness is frankly infantile. Now, should Israel be forced to do domestic policies because America, has some whim or other? Probably not. But these fronts of which you speak are outside Israel's borders. Countries don't have autonomy and sovereignty to do what they want outside their borders. It generally helps to be in a coalition, to have global support. And of course, other than endless belief in God to save your problems, cognizance of the fact that Israel's military would run out of spare parts within weeks for action on any of these fronts without America is advisable. And the actions of this government in particular, and we're staying away from politics here, mostly in this discussion, have caused so much reputational damage. The complete abject failure of public diplomacy to explain what Israel is trying to achieve, to explain, for example, that Israel has no territorial ambition in Lebanon, which everyone seems to think Israel does, has been such that the support for Israel in America also is eroding to the point of an international emergency. And at this point, instead of trying to build coalitions, explain what you're doing, be reasonable, take other people's interests into account, to simply say we're going to do what you want is not a strategic path.
Well, I want to narrow it down, specifically some of the comments that Dan made, but about Judea and Samaria, in effect. Because, as we also spoke about before the broadcast, I'm a settler. I lived for most of my adult life in a settlement in Judea and Samaria. I've been visiting the settlements since the 1970s. I'm a big supporter. Having said that, I am embarrassed by some of the things that go on in Judea and Samaria, especially in recent years, as far as the lawlessness.
People who attack innocent people should be condemned. Wherever they are, wherever they're doing it, that is bad. Attacking innocent people, bad. Okay? So people doing things that are illegal, those people should be taken in by the police and interrogated and be treated like criminals. However, to discuss what's going on in Judea and Samaria and then swoosh over to a small group of people.
But I said.
You did. But I just want to highlight that is horribly mistaken. The overwhelming majority of people, including people on hilltops, are working very closely with local city councils and are like fully accepted, working with the army, and everything is going very, very kosher. It happens to be that there are a few people. Wait, I'm sorry. You will be able to respond, but I'm going to finish my statement. Which is that there is a situation in Judea and Samaria. There is a situation, which is that the same disinformation campaign that is calling Israel a genocider is calling the Hilltops people horrible, violent criminals. When most of the time, the overwhelming majority of the time that you see anything that remotely resembles violence is either A, committed by Arabs against Jews, or B, committed against Jews against Arabs who are defending themselves.
We're down to 2 minutes, and I have to give Dan a chance to respond. Dan, we're under 2 minutes. Go.
So the defense always is, look, a lot of the settlers are so nice. That's not the point.
We're much more than nice. I don't want us to be minimalized like that. We're not nice.
Well,
we are brave. We are strong. We are citizens of this country, and we're doing a valuable service to the rest of the
country,
of
living
Israel.
outside the borders of this country with full rights of citizens, surrounded by a 5 times greater population that has no rights of citizenship in Israel, and the municipal rights of the Palestinian Authority are a bit of a joke. So this is this is an undemocratic situation in the West Bank that is completely unacceptable and is a disgrace to the Jewish state.
So you can advocate for Palestinian rights if you want, but I'm here to advocate for the rights of the Jewish people in the land.
You know what? I'm actually also here as an analyst trying to make head or tails of a complex situation, not advocate for anyone. I will advocate against a minority, whatever minority they may be, of Jews in the West Bank doing crimes that very often veer into terrorism. And you don't have to call them settlers, but you must understand that these are crimes. They are grabbing hilltops, and you compare this to the Zionist effort to buy land and to build a democratic country that will be a light unto the nations.
I absolutely compare it.
Well, I can't.
These people should be recognized by the Knesset. These people should be celebrated by the people of Israel. What do you know about the people of the hilltops?
They're terrorizing.
You don't know anything about the people of the hilltops, and you're ready to smear their good name.
Quite a bit.
You're ready to smear their good name, but you actually have no idea.
That sit there and grab a hilltop, sit with a gun, threaten the Palestinians, steal their land, run over their sheep, and know that they're doing this with the implicit.
A huge group of people.
There's no way to talk this way, Malcolm. Please stop. They're doing it with the implicit support of the Israeli military that refuses to take action against them. None of them have been prosecuted.
Why do you think
that is? And their purpose, by the way, is to drive the Palestinians into more terrorism so that a huge Armageddon-like war will happen. And to defend them, because many settlers... Do you hear yourself
saying that Jews are trying to drive Arabs to violence? Do you hear yourself?
There is no doubt in my mind whatsoever. And the extremists...
That's crazy.
The extremists who are doing this, they are terrorists. And the government's refusal to take any action against them is part of the reputational damage that Israel has absorbed. And you are right that there is a very successful and very nefarious and mendacious campaign against Israel. And the propaganda against Israel is terrible. But here you're handing your enemies on a platter much more weapons than they could ever have dreamed of.
You're just a pawn of the disinformation campaign.
All right. Well, that was a very interesting final part of our broadcast, I have to say.